welcome to the Martha's Vineyard Film Center's, or Film Society's 2020 Spectrum Film Festival. My name is Bob Dutton, and I'm here with David Charles Rodrigues, the director of Gay Chorus Deep South, for a conversation. So at this point, you should have watched this wonderful film. And I'm sure you have some questions. And so, of course, I'm going to start with the obvious question is, where did the idea for this film originate?
Actually, I think the idea of making it really came from the 2016 election. I had worked extensively on a voter registration campaign that I wrote and created. Alejandro Najitu directed it, and we made over 100 films, 1-minute films. And the campaign was successful in itself, but unfortunately, the results of the election didn't go the way we wanted them to go. And then after the elections, I kind of stopped to reflect on, what went wrong and, what was the state of affairs in America. And I wasn't too worried about who became president. I was more worried about the divisiveness that was created from that election that we're seeing, reflected right now, during this pandemic, right? And then, when I learned that the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus decided to do a tour to the Deep South, they announced that tour a day after the elections. I was just so inspired by that idea, because I felt like out of everything that was, in the news cycle, that was the only manifestation of hope and of, that had a true shot at bridging, these two sides of America, yep, would be with them and with music.
Amen, brother. So how did you connect? Were you knowledgeable about the course before going into this, or is this something that you just saw on the news or something that said, "Hey, I need to contact these people"?
Yeah, no, it's something I saw in the news. Actually, my wife told me about it during a coffee in the morning conversation. She was like, "Well, I read this article." We both lived in San Francisco for many, many years. I live in LA now, but so we were part of the San Francisco scene, and we have been big advocates and supporters in the LGBTQ community for, since I can remember, and the glorious Heklina, she's the most famous drag in San Francisco. She married us, and so, there was already a lot of heart and affinity, not just for the community, but for that group, but it was truly, one of those moments where you're just having coffee with someone and they tell you about this story, and it just, it just opens your mind, and I just became obsessed with it, and I just didn't stop until the film got done.
Well, that's great, because I know creative people, being a writer director myself, is the whole idea of being open up to opportunities to it's like, that might be a good idea, that might be a good idea, and for you to sort of have this serendipitous moment where it all comes together, it's like makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
In terms of how you edited and shaped the story here, obviously you took many times the footage that we saw and had to pare it down into a basic story. What stood out to you while you were filming this that say, this is maybe a through line that we can follow with a particular person or an idea that you think, okay, this will help package the whole film into several storylines? What were you looking for?
We were very fortunate to have Airbnb as our financial supporter. That said, we still had the budget of an independent film, so we didn't really have a lot of resources. The majority of the film was shot by 4 people, and then when we were on tour, we were 8. That was the biggest crew I had. So all of that said, just to illuminate the idea that I had to really structure the film before we even shot it. I didn't have the latitude or the luxury to just send out cameras and see what happened. So the film was, there were two things we did to structure it and to be able to, get to the movie we have right now. And one was going through the chorus's set list, and understanding, the message, because their music is really about the message, and understanding that message and how that message could really carry the story forward and become kind of these structural turning points in the film. So we structured the film around the songs. And then the second point was, before even meeting the chorus, I sat down and I wrote like 30 dream, subjects in their backstories, just kind of one lines on their backstories, and then I think that was the thing that really helped the chorus give the project to us, because there were two other filmmakers and production companies that wanted to make that film.
Oh, really?
And we ended up winning the bid. Yeah. And I feel like it was really because I think they felt that we had early on, we had a deep understanding of who they are, and it was really about people. So anyways, I showed them this list of 30 dream subjects, and they were like, we have every single person on this list. So then we did a little casting session with those people, and we were able to pare it down to 5 subjects. And then we ended up following 4 of them throughout the entire tour. And then, through the cruel, decision making in the edit floor, we had to lose one of those characters who's very, very dear to my heart. But the story just didn't intercut with people in the South as well as the other ones did.
Yeah, I'm sure having subjects that were from the South was actually a great motivator as well in terms of selecting them, because their story was personally impacted by this journey.
Yeah. And that's what it was really, our goal was really to create these human connections, between people in San Francisco and people in the South. And, and that really dictated of what stayed in the film and what didn't. And, a huge kudos to our editor, Jeff Gilbert. He's a true genius. And here's a fun fact. When we were filming, one of my favorite scenes in the film, when we were filming it, it's the radio station scene at the alt-right radio station.
Yep.
And we thought we were going to get a heated conversation, and things were going to go really south, no pun intended, and it didn't. And we left that radio scene, like all of us, including Tim, super disappointed, being like, oh man, this was our one, confrontation opportunity, not our one, but like one that we were really looking forward to. And then, after Jeff showed me the scene that he cut and edit, it was so profound and so incredible that, one thing that I was filming that I thought probably wouldn't even make the film became my favorite scene. So Jeff's ability and his ability to really find the subtext of a scene within a scene is really something that, not every editor has. And yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So what to you is the most meaningful moment of the film? Is it that?
No, it's not that. That was a surprise. And that was just, proof not only of Jeff's talent, but of how important collaboration is in filmmaking, and how important it is to, to just allow people to own the film as well. Everyone you're working with, Jim Henson has a great quote where, he says that, a little kid once asked him, how do you make all of this? Right. I think the story was that they were at a Dark Crystal exhibit, and they had all the sculptures everywhere. And then a little 8-year-old kid walked up to him and pointed at one of the big, sculptures and said, how do you make this? And he said, well, you come up with an idea that has enough heart and that's beautiful and big enough that you can give to a lot of people. And then they make that idea their own. And when they give it back to you, it will be way more beautiful and profound than you ever imagined. And that's how you make large scale art.
Oh yeah.
And I truly believe in that.
And I could see that, because the film not only has several story arcs to it with these individual characters, but the whole journey. I mean, we feel like we're on the journey as well, and it's so we almost vicariously become a subject as well as our own emotions ebb and flow through
Oh,
what's going
good.
on here.
That 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 that, that was definitely purposeful. So I'm glad that you felt that way.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, the most personal moment for me and the most meaningful is really every after before every concert, they go backstage with the friends and family. It's towards the end of the film, and they sing this Irish blessing.
Oh,
And I think in the film it happens in North Carolina, and Tim's, on a little podium, and all these family members are with their kids, whether it's relatives or parents or close friends that they haven't seen in years, and they sing this song. And I lost my mother when I was very young, so there's a moment in the film where Tim says, um, I miss my mom. And I always, kind of invite my mom to that Irish blessing every screening, and there's been over 150 of them. So, and yeah, I've probably seen the film, I don't know, maybe 100 times by now, and I still cry during that scene. So it has I think that's the scene that really allows me to detach and just, kind of become part of become a viewer and just really enjoy it for what it is.
yeah. I've been a drama teacher for many years, and I even teach film analysis classes on YouTube, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so I love the concept of the roller coaster, and particularly a roller coaster in the dark, because you don't know where it's going next.
Yeah.
And with documentaries, I get that sense. I know that some of the great documentarians have said that they go in making one film, but by the time that they end, they realize they're making something else. Um, so I know you went in with the idea of telling personal stories. Did you come out of this with things that were unexpected for you, that you delighted you, that moved you, that you were not expecting?
I mean, there were a few moments, to be totally transparent. Overall, no, like we really had that vision, and obviously, the results surpassed our vision, and that's what you dream of. It really, we were able to go above and beyond what we planned out to do. Um, there is a moment towards the end of the film where one of the chorus members, Julian, receives a quilt from this lady that they were. I think they played Candy Crush or something on Facebook together, and that's how they became friends, which is really beautiful. And that moment was a real surprise. And that moment, I was behind the camera and crying, while that was happening in real time. And that was a true surprise. And then I think the biggest surprise of the film, actually, and there was, I think the biggest surprise, and not just for us, but for the chorus as well, was that 90% of the experience of the tour was filled with love and positivity, and that tension and that hate and that, vitriol that, we were prepared for and that we had armor for. It happened, but it was so insignificant compared to the connections that were made and to the people that, we met. And that's really, what ended up being the end message of the film, but it was also the message of the filmmaking as well of, we went there, wanting to be heard, but we ended up getting, way more in return.
Yeah.
And what really happened, and after, really thinking through that and trying to understand, what happened, where we were able to connect at such a profound level and really open up all these doors, all these arms and hearts and minds. And it had nothing to do with the music. It had nothing to do with the message that we were bringing. It had to do that we sat down and we listened to them. And what we really learned is, if you want to be heard, the first thing you have to do is listen. And really listening to people, goes way further than, marching in the streets and holding up a sign, or, protest activism is extremely important, and it creates visibility, and I'm all for it. But I feel like there needs to be other parallel activities where, we're sitting down with each other and we're listening to each other with no judgment, and with an open mind to try to understand. even if it's something that you completely disagree with and you know that's wrong, but for some reason, what's wrong for you is right for that person. And it's really helpful, at least, to try to understand that.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a religious person? And at the same time, how did this journey for you change your thought about religious and religious people?
That's a wonderful question. That was another big discovery, actually. I mean, I'm baptized in an Orthodox Greek church,
Gotcha.
but I am a very spiritual person. I have a strong Brazilian spiritual practice, but I am not religious. You know, I'm not a churchgoer, and I was never against it, but I had, you know, just as many people who aren't churchgoers have this kind of, you know, lofty point of view on it, right? Or, you know, they just kind of see the negative points, or they see the cliche, you know, they think of it as a very one-dimensional, cliched way. What I learned when we went there is that these churches are the community centers of these towns.
Yep.
You know, they're like, they're the liver of the town. They filter the towns, and they really are able to not only create community, but creating true community, which is people that help other people, you know, and it's pretty incredible. You know, of course, you know, like anywhere, there are the more closed-minded churches, you know, that, you know, still preach hate and preach things that I you know, strongly believe that Jesus would be against. But then you find churches, you know, like the one in Greenville, South Carolina, with Pastor Jim Dan. It's the church in the end of the film, and you're like, you know, oh my God, I can't even believe this place exists. You know, it's truly like a center for the great of good of humanity. You know, and that gives you so much hope, and it becomes such a role model. And I went on tour with the film. I mean, everywhere, but I think where it became really clear was when I went, I did the Southern Circuit. So it's a National Endowments of the Arts program that takes you to really small communities in the South, you know? So like, for example, we took the film to Bowling Green, Kentucky. It's a town that still has restaurants and cafes that have signs at the door that say no gays allowed. And it's a completely divided town, like, you know, as they described it, straight in the middle. But what was interesting is that the first night I got there, they took me to speak at a church, and this church was divided in the middle, and they hadn't become, the pastor was accepting, but the church hadn't been openly accepting yet. And she wanted me to go there to speak to the people and to show some scenes and to share those experiences of the other churches in the South to help open that up. You know, and I have no idea the impact that made, but I could feel it when I was there. And I really feel that, and just to conclude that question, after seeing the work that Jim is doing in Greenville and that Rob is doing in Mississippi and some other churches that we visited, I truly believe that churches can become the greatest entities and sources of activism in the world right now, you know, because they're so well organized. You know, they really know how to get things done in the right way. And, you know, I'm really, after the film, I became, you know, more interested in organized religion. And I found some groups around the world that are, you know, big active, you know, Christian activist groups for climate change, you know, and it's like Jesus for the planet and whatnot. And, you know, I truly believe if someone can make a difference in those subjects, you know, even right now in the pandemic, are people like them, you know, because their organization and the way they do things is really set up to create, you know, a successful movement.
Well, speaking of making a change, making a difference, what can you tell us about the people in this film and how their lives have changed. Have you been in touch with a bunch of them, and have they told you how they have moved forward or sideways, or what's happened to these people since they were filmed?
Yeah. Well, I don't even know where I start. Maybe I'll start with the young girls in Tennessee.
Oh, I was going to ask you about them next. Good.
Yeah. The experience of filming with them was really profound, of us, learning, their realities and them just, finally being able to open up,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they knew how large of a scale they would be opening up to, um, but they did see the film and they loved it, and they were really touched by it. But what's even more touching was that the year after we filmed with them, they all went out to college. Jessica, who's the girl with the red hair, she's the more open person, and she was a big activist in the community, a pro LGBTQ activist. She got a full scholarship at a prestigious university.
Wow.
The other person who we couldn't really conceal her image during the
Yeah.
film. They ended up moving out of their home and are now living a fully openly proud life, and going to veterinary school and going to college, and really fulfilling their dreams. So yeah, they didn't let they didn't let the energies that were trying to stop them from being themselves stop them, and they just kind of carried on. And yeah, and then Tim, the conductor
Yeah.
of the chorus, his daughter never really left his side. They were
That's good.
taken apart for a few years in the beginning, while the separation and
Yeah.
divorce trial was happening. But when things got sorted, he was able to connect with her again. His son, however, was estranged from him up until after college, even asking to remove his last name.
Oh, how sad.
And fortunately, as in most stories of positive success, there's a woman behind it. The son fell in love with this woman, and he proposed to her, and she said, "I'll only marry you if I can meet your dad." And then the son,
She's a real catch.
and this was many years ago. And the son said, went to Tim and said, "Hey, my fiance wants to meet you." And he said, "Well, I'll agree to meet her if I can bring my husband." And they had a double date, and ever since they've been close. And now Tim has grandkids, and it's really a beautiful it's a beautiful comeback story.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Jimmy, this film really transformed his life. He got to travel around the world with the film. He was battling stage 4 liver cancer. He was given weeks to live, and he ended up passing away a few months ago. But I've never seen someone live as intensely and as beautifully as he lived with the terminal disease.
Yeah, it was fascinating
And
to have his father and stepmother, really be a part of that, and that was his story was quite touching, and to know that he's passed away is definitely sad. But
yeah, but the bright part is that the tour happened around October of
yeah,
2017,
okay,
and
3 years ago.
in the that Christmas, his father invited him to spend Christmas with his dad for the first time in like 15 years,
Wow.
and was closely in touch with his dad ever since, and they really reformed their relationship. And Jimmy got to live. I think Jimmy got to live an entire lifetime since he went on that tour and made this film, and the kind of happy tragic part of it is that his father passed away, and then he passed away like a week later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's pretty, Yeah, it was really hard for us, to be honest. I'm still processing. He became, the whole, like, you know, I hope this repeats again in my career. I don't know if it will, but
Well,
well, not about making the film, but about, these people became my family, and I truly love them, and like Valerie, the beautiful black singer who sings that,
yeah.
incredible song. She calls me every now and then, almost like a cool aunt or mother, and to check in, especially during this time. And it's just, yeah, I don't even know how to express, my gratitude for these people.
Yeah, it is it's a marvelous film. As somebody who does not um, have the connection to the South, as others do, though I did live in Orlando for 20 years. Um,
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah.
Orlando is quite religious, and you've got it's sort of in the middle
Totally.
of two
Yeah.
worlds, of people who are relatively progressive and people who are very conservative. And I'm sure that this is the type of thing that a lot of churches can, look at themselves proudly as like say, oh yeah, we're on the right side. But I know that the American South is, a difficult nut to crack. The Bible Belt is your thought about the American South, has that changed at all through this journey? I mean,
Yeah.
what you thought going in as opposed to what you thought coming out.
Absolutely. And I really hoped, it was our goal to focus on the non-cliches of the South and to really show, the humanity of it. So we spent 3 months in the South before the
Really,
tour, so
that
we
much? Wow.
shot, yeah, and that's how we met the people. And, on and off, we didn't spend 3 months consecutively, but
Yeah.
in a total, we shot a lot there, because it was really important for us to understand the South and to give them the voice. Um, for me, there are three choirs in the film. There's the San Francisco chorus, there's the Oakland choir,
Yeah.
and then the voices from the South for me are a third choir. It was really important for me to give them those voices. And that's when, we had the idea of using that lavender backdrop and interviewing people before and after the concert. But it was really, this ability of speaking their language and understanding. I think the biggest learning, though, was really meeting these people like Malaysia, the trans
Yep.
activist in
Yep.
Mississippi, who lived her entire life there and in Mississippi, and faced every challenge you can imagine, but lives a happy life. Lives with her husband, has fostered over 14 kids who got
Wow.
kicked out of their homes for being gay or trans. And she's, just this badass. And I feel like, the only way that, the South can have true change is if, more people like her stay. I know it's difficult, I know it's challenging, I know it's not for everyone, but I do know a lot of people who are liberal, who are open-minded, who are pro-love, who also love the South, and want to stay there and want to live their lives, and it's not an ongoing fight. You're not fighting all the time. You'll fight more than you'll fight in San Francisco, but you'll get to be, this, you'll get to be the shining light and this role model, and people will meet you, right? Like,
Yeah.
the quickest way for you to overcome prejudice is just to make it personal, right? Like,
Yeah.
and Malaysia talks a lot about it, like all these, right-wing politicians or, business people that, probably, have so much hate for the type of person she is. When she goes and meets them and talks to them and makes them laugh and, and spends real time with them, they really have a change of heart, and we saw that a lot, just by being with people and spending time with them. So I really believe that, there is a great story, again, on the Southern Circuit. It was interesting. The Southern Circuit was the least attended set of festival, but it was it had the most profound Q&As. We were in Winston-Salem, and this college, 20-something-year-old girl, queer girl with, I think she had purple hair, and she was there with her mom and some friends. She raised her arm, and I was like, yeah. She's like, no, I just want to share a story with you. I was like, okay. And she said she was living in New York at the time, finishing school when the film premiered at Tribeca.
Yeah.
And she went to see the film. And she was, and she hit, she really, that point of, seeing these people that stayed there and that fought and that became local activists really stuck with her so much that after she completed her school, she moved back to Winston-Salem, to her home.
Wow.
And she became an activist and started a group there. And I mean, I was like, really? Did someone pay you to say this? Like, it was really, beautiful, and it was a huge surprise. But, and I'm not saying that's the power of the film, but I'm saying that,
but it is.
If it can help at least show, give visibility to people who are there doing that and thriving. There's thousands of more, of people who are doing that, that we weren't able to show.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that's a huge thing.
Well, I have been both an English teacher and a drama teacher for many years, and I knew that you were an excellent filmmaker within the first 45 seconds of this film. And the reason for that is because I think the first line of the film, or the second line of the film, is, we have to learn to dance with the storm.
Yeah.
And that everything that you've talked about, that not even just the filmmaking, but the chorus, going on this journey of the people, as you say, this girl at Tribeca who went back, because she had to learn to dance with the storm. She went to learn how to dance in New York. She's coming back, coming back home to show the world, the dance that she can do.
Yeah.
It's terrific. I mean, it's a great way to see the metaphor of this entire 2 hours, that there's this problem that has to be dealt with, and you can't deal with it if you're not part of it. So congratulations to you and your team and your family and all the people who are part of this film. It was moving. It is the film of all the films we're showing this year. It's the one I say you need to start with this film. You need to start with Gay Chorus Deep South, because it will take you on that emotional roller coaster that you need, that will inspire you to watch more films of that handle various subject matters in there. I mean, I've got a transgender son, a lesbian daughter, and I am bisexual. So I see my family story in this as well. Even though none of us, live in the Bible Belt, this is how you deal with other people. And and Jimmy White's story with his father and his stepmother, I found to be incredibly valuable for anybody who's got any sort of struggle in their family. Is like, you have to move forward, and that just maintaining the status quo will not get you anywhere. And so the journey that this course made is the same journey, I'm sure, as a filmmaker, that, and you told me that this has changed your way of thinking about religion of the South, of people. It's like, I'm sure that the girl from New York did the same thing. So you have inspired other people with your film. So congratulations to you. And more importantly, thank you for allowing people the opportunity to see this conversation happening. So,
well, thank you, and thank you for your wonderful festival, for also dancing with the storm we're going through right now. I felt very, it's very easy to just be like, well, there's nothing we can do. We're gonna have to shut down for a year, and the quick turnaround that festivals like yours and some others of going digital. I really hope people will support that, because even from home, like, more than ever, we have to create a sense of togetherness. And I feel like that's the one thing, the most profound thing that film festivals do is they bring, you know, every type of person together. And I feel like they can still achieve that, you know, online. And, you know, we need nothing more than films, you know, that can inspire us, but most importantly, festivals that can, you know, still create that sense of community, even when we're, you know, in our homes right now.
So which leads me to my last question. What's up with you? What's next? What are you working on?
Oh,
that you can tell us about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say much about much, but well, I have a few things. I'm currently in edit for a Netflix docuseries that I've been filming since August. We haven't finished filming, of course. We're waiting to complete it. Hopefully, you know, in August we can get out to shoot again. I can't really talk a lot about it. It's a completely different subject matter. I do have another film that I'm developing that is kind of a spiritual sequel to Gay Chorus. I met this incredible trans reverend in North Carolina, and I optioned the rights to her book, and I really want to turn it into, you know, a feature film. Her story is literally the most incredible story of resistance and fight that I've ever seen in my life. A Black trans reverend, you know, who lives in the state that has the worst laws against the trans community.
Is that a documentary or is it a narrative?
It would be a narrative with some elements of documentary.
Well, you know, it's funny because a lot of narratives these days are made by documentarians who really know the subject matter, you know, and know how to tell stories beautifully. And so I wish you great success for that. I'm ready to watch.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me. Those were really good questions, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, David. The answers were even better.
Thank everyone for watching us as well. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Stay well. You know, stay safe, and at the same time, keep making movies. We want to see more good stuff.
Thank you so much. And hopefully I can come to Martha's Vineyard in person next time.
Yes. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.